Disclosures like these tear at the fabric of responsible government.
We're looking at all of the things that we can do to stem the flow of this information.
This was the biggest leak in the history of this particular planet.
My name is Julian Assange. I'm the editor of WikiLeaks. We help you get the truth out. If you get this material, give it to us, no questions asked, and you'll help change history.
The internet lets governments get more information than ever, but it lets citizens do the same.
Here was this kid who had reached out in confidence and said, hey, I'm leaking secrets.
The consequences of the release of these documents are potentially severe and dangerous.
The Army has detained a U.S. soldier in connection with the leak of this classified video.
Two of the men killed worked for the Reuters news agency.
Journalists' cameras were mistaken for weapons.
The prime suspect is 22-year-old Bradley Manning.
There was a responsibility to the needs of the many.
We promised the source that we would publish everything.
About 1 o'clock in the morning, I took delivery on a USB stick of 390,000 secret US military records.
There was material which could get people hurt. Julian said, if an Afghan civilian helps occupying forces, he deserves to die.
They might already have on their hands the blood of some young soldier.
Scared the hell out of a lot of people. How are we going to stop it? And how far has it gone already?
The sort of aging student hobo was a rock star, changing phones and changing computers.
Wearing a bulletproof vest.
He'd been trained in evasive tactics.
This idealist became something else.
I'm untouchable now in this country.
Sweden issued a warrant for the arrest of Julian Assange.
On suspicion of molestation and rape.
I really didn't want this to be in the papers.
I have never said that this is a honey trap. I have never said that it is not a honey trap.
Everyone has secrets. If they are broadly known, you cannot accomplish your work.
I'm not going to talk about that.
But it does affect WikiLeaks.
Let me be very candid. Nation states need to be secret in order to be successful. We steal secrets.
It's not about WikiLeaks. It's about transparency. Who gets to control information?
And they came on board with this documentary from the get-go, is that correct?
They did, and I was utterly surprised that they did. When I called them up, it would I had approached Gibney about doing this because I had become captivated by the story. This was in the latter part of 2010, and as you know, 2010 was just the year of Assange and the year of WikiLeaks, and every time you turned around, there was another groundbreaking, set of documents that he was exposing, and it was just, the promise of a whole new era of transparency was taking over, and I was a believer. I was utterly captivated by what they were doing, and also I was mesmerized by the figure of Julian himself, who's just so charismatic and also enigmatic, and I couldn't kind of get my head around what I really felt about him, but I knew I wanted to know more about him, which therefore struck me as an ideal subject to pursue as a documentary. So I reached out to Gibney and proposed to him, about doing this, and Alex responded with great enthusiasm, and so the first stop, because this was actually even before I had officially started my company with Universal, but I said they're going to be underwriting my production company, and I want to take this to them first, but, I'm not expecting that they're going to have any interest in doing it, but I want to make sure that we've just sort of, out of respect done that. And then to our total surprise, from the first conversation, they sparked to it and shared our fascination and wanted to do a movie of serious subject matter like this. And as you know, this is right at a moment when it seems like all the studios want to do are basically comic book blow-up movies. That was not what we were expecting, and I'm really grateful that they did step up and make it possible.
Usually with documentaries, they start from a director who then goes to a producer, and then after it's made independently, they then go looking for some sort of backing from a studio. You seem to have reversed the model. The idea for the film originated with you. You went to Gibney, and you had Universal in from the word go. You seem to have shifted the paradigm somewhat, Mark.
Well, I'm blessed with ignorance. Since I had not done a documentary prior, I didn't know how it was done, and I just went about doing it the way I kind of could figure how to do it. You know what I mean? I think it helped not knowing what I was doing, is what I would say. And look, and it helped that quickly I was able to earn the trust of a prominent filmmaker, and then also had the trust of a studio that was willing to back us on it. So it did come together. The financing part, which I'm learning, in the world of documentaries, I'm actually just starting another one quite soon, is the trickiest and most difficult part. For us, it actually turned out to be the easiest part because Universal signed up to the entire production early on. So yes, I just didn't know any better is the honest answer, Jim.
Okay. I mean, you were responsible for Universal enjoying huge success with films like Knocked Up and Bourne Ultimatum. It's interesting that now, as a producer on your own, rather than going for, I guess, big, popular movies, you've chosen, this film. Can you just tell me a little bit about what your guiding principles are now as a producer?
Yeah, I mean, look, whether big or small, to me, I define a project that I want to pursue as something that I have a gigantic passion to make. And because I've had the wonderful privilege of having been involved in literally hundreds of movies over my career, it has to be something I care desperately about in order to make me care about doing it. And so it happens that the first two productions we got going were small movies that I care desperately about, but we're working also on some very big movies that I care desperately about. But it has to do with degree of passion, and then hopefully when you believe in something that strongly and it's resonated in you so powerfully that what it is in you that it resonates with, you find in others that it can resonate in them as well, and then with that enthusiasm, the hope is that they sign up to help you finance it, distribute it, fund it, however, to make it.
This film really reveals a lot about Bradley Manning. I'm very interested to know how much of this story you knew beforehand, or whether the making of the film was as much revelation to you as it is for the viewer when they see it.
It is that. It was a revelation to us. I mean, when we started making the film, we thought we were going to tell the Julian Assange WikiLeaks story, and we found that we were actually making a two-hander, a story that was focused upon two equally important subjects, of Bradley and of Julian. And, when we started the production, Wired had put out a very limited number of the chats between Adrian Lamo and Bradley Manning, but it wasn't until months after we were already in production that they finally released the full transcript of all the chats between them. And it was when we saw that the light bulb went on, and we realized, what an amazing narrative was taking place in the intimacy of that chat room between the whistleblower and the person that he was confessing to, who was ultimately betraying him. And I remember when Alex called and had, kind of gripped by the idea, like, gee, maybe we can actually tell this story through text on screen, which it's one of those ideas that seems almost revolutionary when you first propose it until you start to do it and it starts to work, and then it just seems so inevitable, so like the exact way and only way you could have done it. But we certainly did not know that when we started.
And I understand that WikiLeaks are not very happy with the movie, and I guess if you have any measure that you've done the right thing, it's that.
Well, you know, to start with, you know, they weren't happy with the movie before they ever saw the movie. You know, Julian had denounced the film, having never seen it when we went to Sundance. Yeah, which is a kind of remarkable thing to me, that he kind of prejudged it without ever really taking measure of what it was that Alex was trying to tell and do. But yes, it certainly has raised the ire of Julian and his followers. And yeah, I think that's a little bit of a testament to the fact that it pulls no punches and it refuses to kind of, you know, what should we say, to blindly line up as, you know, as one of his followers. And I think that, but what Alex does, I think, while holding Julian to task for holding him appropriately to task for, you know, some of the deeper flaws in his character and some of his actions, the film is very, you know, focused on communicating how important the mission of WikiLeaks has been and how revolutionary WikiLeaks has been in transforming the world. And I believe that. You know, I totally am a believer in the mission. Unfortunately, you know, I have less belief in the leader at this moment.
WikiLeaks does sort of hold itself to a very high, noble cause, and Assange has been the champion of that. Yet it also seems to be the case that the more we learn about Assange, the more he's actually interested in image management and control of information, especially about himself and the way he operates, than one would have normally assumed given the persona he projects. And this comes through in the film.
Yeah, I mean, I think the paradox is that you said that, you know, WikiLeaks holds itself to whatever noble cause. It actually holds others to a high ideal, which it doesn't hold itself to. And I think that's where the paradox comes. You know, and I think that, you know, and that's, again, you know, one of the big themes of the movie, which is articulated by James Ball late in the movie of noble cause corruption, that Julian has become the thing that he set out to rid the world of, which is corrupted by his own insular perspective and power, and that's the tragedy. But again, even with that tragedy, one can't but take note of how significant some of the accomplishments of the mission and the organization.
Given that the whole Assange WikiLeaks issue is an ongoing news event, I'm keen to know how you would like the film to play into the public's understanding of WikiLeaks and of Assange and of Bradley Manning.
Well, I hope it really does contribute to a kind of well-rounded understanding of the whole story. I think there have been many parts of the story that have been told, and certainly you're exposed to it much more in Australia than people are in the United States. But I don't think that the full dimension of the story of what WikiLeaks was about, who Julian is, what he's about, where the role of Bradley Manning plays in all of it, getting into, you know, the full betrayal of Adrian Lamo and the rest of the characters. I hope that this really stands apart as the definitive telling of the story of what we know about it, and so that in the most digestible way that everybody can understand it. But you're right, the story continues on, which makes it fascinating. It's like a little bit trying to pin down Mercury. You know, it just keeps moving on you.
Michael Moore needs to take credit for changing the perception of feature documentaries, that they can be released in cinemas and they can make a lot of money and they can influence a debate, or it can influence the way people think. Previously, we tended to think of documentaries as things you see on television. I'm presuming that was the main reason why you decided to make this as a feature film, because the nature of documentary has shifted.
Well, yeah, I mean, we were captivated by the story, and we hoped and trusted that others would be as well, and that it could be told in a way that would be very cinematic, and I think Alex has done a brilliant job of accomplishing that. And it's a massive story, and more, at least fills a feature, if not more, you know? I mean, we have cuts of this movie that are 3.5 hours long before we finally really wrestled it into shape. So it's a massive story, as you know. So it was worthy of a feature, and I hope people will agree when they see it.